Hi, everyone. My name is David Lopez, and I'm a Senior Technical Assistant Specialist with WestEd. And I'm really excited to present to you today around our systemic equity reviews, AKA also known in the field as equity audits. But we did not want to continue the use of equity audits, that name, because it's not representative of the ways that we do this work, right? Equity audit sounds like we're the IRS and we're going to come in and we're going to wag our fingers at you and tell you what you did wrong. And that really isn't representative of the work that we do. So we sort of rebrand it to systemic equity reviews. And so, I'm really excited again to be here with you and just let you know a little bit about the work that we do. So as always, I like to start by being really transparent about what undergrids or where we're coming from, right? So we're going to start with some of our value propositions. And the first is that equity is not a lens. It's not something, pair of glasses that you can put on and take off, right? It is a mindset that we must make normative. It has to be part of everything we do, the ways that we see the world, the ways that we make decisions, right? In addition, we have to be mindful of centering race and identifying and addressing power, privilege, and bias-based beliefs. And I want to say, centering race does not come at the exclusion of other marginalized identities, right? They come at the intersection of. So if we are talking about gender, but we exclude race, we may miss that Black girls are having a different schooling experience overall than our white girls, right? And so we center race. And when we talk about other marginalized identities, it comes at the intersection. As we do that, as we make equity normative, as we center race and identify power and privilege, our commitment to those things are not enough. Policies, practices must follow. We have to actually make the change. As we aim to make that change, we need to understand that we're not here to fix students and communities or their families. They're not broken. Again, our students, families, and communities are not broken. However, what we are here to address and fix are our systems, our adult practices, right? And again, to be able to do that, to be able to identify what are the inequities, we have to really use culture responsive data methods, right? And include the voices of those experiencing the marginalization or the inequities. They are the most knowledgeable. We often think that it's folks like myself or education researchers that are the experts of other people's experiences, right? And in practicality, we continue to miss so much when we don't include the voices of the actual people. And as we really move from those value propositions and identifying inequities, we have to really build the capacity of educational institutions to do the work on their own, right? We can't come in as outside providers and think that we're going to come in and fix it, right? Back to our original conversation about the audits. But we're really here to build the capacity of the institution to be culture responsive, to have culturally responsive data literacy, to center the lives and experience of Black, Indigenous, and other students of color, and those students whose identities are at the intersection of those, right? And as we really do that work, again, as you've probably heard some key words as I'm presenting, is really around collaboration with the educational institution, often districts, but also states, nonprofits as well, right? And for WestEd, we really ground that in identifying the beliefs, policies, procedures, and practices, right? The beliefs being both individual and systemic beliefs, those that educators hold, but also that our systems hold, often codified in our policies, procedures, and enacted in our practices, right? I know a lot of institutions that want to focus on the policies, the procedures, the practices. For us, key here is the belief work. Without the belief work, right, we're going to ultimately fail to address the inequities. And again, for example, We can use discipline as an example, right? If we hold the belief that students need to be punished for them to learn or change behaviors, our code of conduct or our policy might mirror that belief, right? And then our practices of punishment follow, often then leading what we see in the field is the disproportionate suspension and referrals of Black children, and sometimes Latinx and Indigenous children, other children of color as well. But sometimes we see the change in policy, the code of conduct being really restorative. But often when we don't address the beliefs that our educators hold, the practices may still be that of punishment, right? And so we want to not solely focus on the policies, procedure, and practices, but also do the belief work simultaneously and make that systemic, right? Codify that in policies. So how do we do this, right? We really do this work through a three-phase approach with our educational institutions, right? The first phase being around culture responsive data collection. And what we do there is we begin by always assessing the readiness and commitment. Like I said, I like to start with our value propositions. We want to make sure that the educational institution that we're going to work with is ready to engage in that way, right? We're not saying that you have to be, if you know how to do it, we know then you wouldn't need us. But we want to make sure that you're ready to at least begin that journey or continue that journey, right? But then really in that collaboration that I've talked about, we want to develop a equity team to support the systemic equity review, right? And we can do that through existing teams, often at the district level, right? Combining teams, but what we wanna make sure we're mindful of is a diversity of the equity team, right? Role diversity, that we have parents, board members, teachers, school building leaders, district staff, wanna pay attention to the folks who can make the changes that come out of the review, right? So if we know discipline is gonna come up, we wanna make sure the folks who can enact those changes are also present. But beyond role diversity, we also wanna pay attention to racial and gender representation, right? And make sure that we have a representative as much as possible. That's not always fully possible, but as much as possible, representative of the student population, right? We want to co-identify the research questions together. And we want to make sure that they're meaningful to the educational institution or the district, and that it's something that they have the data for, right? Something that we can actually review. And then ultimately, we want to, as we begin to actually collect the data, and that data includes both quantitative, so like outcomes, right? Who's being suspended, who's being referred, who's in advanced placement courses, but also that qualitative data, right? To tell the story of what that quantitative data or those numbers are telling us, because they're just numbers on the page without the real experience of people, right? And we do that through interviews, focus groups, and then developing data workbooks out of that qualitative and quantitative data. That's not the only place, right, that we want to hear the voices of those folks. And so that really leads, we take those data workbooks and it supports us in our phase 2, which is around culture responsive data literacy and root cause analysis. Often what we'll propose is about 10 3-hour sessions, so about 30 hours of work, right? Beyond, and that's just together, beyond all the other work that we do. And in this work, we're going to work with the district, with the equity team, often a district equity team, and really provide some professional learning to understand the root causes of inequities, to understand the role that race plays, to understand culture responsive education, right? As we build that mindset, right, we also want to build their capacity to analyze the data workbooks and all their findings. Ultimately, the goal to end here is as we build that mindset, then we can co-identify the beliefs, policies, practices, and procedures contributing to inequities. But beyond that, right, because we don't want to just leave you with the problems, often we know what's going on. We want to co-develop the recommendations, right? What are we going to do about this? And while we bring some the research, we want to do that with the folks who understand the local context. And then as we finish that in our phase 2, we're going to finalize our systemic equity review report that includes the findings and goals developed by the equity team. And then we want to co-present those findings to the educational community, for instance, at a district and maybe to the board. But again, it's in collaboration because it's no longer just our work as outside providers, it's the work of that educational institution. And then we'll develop, depending on the project, some tools to support around data, root causes, again, to leave folks with the tools to be able to continue this work. We can't come in, do a review, leave, and think that that's where it ends, right? So for our presentation, we really want to co-present with a district that we recently did this work with. We want to model what it means to do this work in our presentation. And in that presentation, yes, we want to share our approach, but we really want to hear from the district. What was the impact of the work we did together? How did we do it? What were the challenges? How did we overcome those challenges? Where are they today? By the time we'll present, it'll be about over a year, I want to say. What's come after that, right? How have we stayed connected? What role did we play as even while there wasn't a contract, right? And as we think about this, I want to leave you with something that a quote from a previous client and somebody that I've gotten to know. And she says, "We appreciate this transformative partnership with WestEd. This is work that changes classrooms and changes lives, children's lives, and it can lead us all to great joy." I know we often think about how hard equity work is and how in this current climate, how contentious it can be. But I want us to leave us with, it can lead us all to great joy. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here with you all, and take care and be well and be safe.